Welcome into the Saturday Show, everybody. Hope you all are doing well on this Saturday morning. My name is Jay Catch, joined as always by Michelle Bodkin, the Utah Utes insider for KSLSports.com. Michelle, how are you?
I am tired.
I figured that might be the case.
I say that a lot on this show, I feel like.
Yeah.
But like we are especially tired. Yesterday was a lot. Actually,
Yes.
This whole week has been a lot.
Mhm.
The last 14 months have been a lot. And, yesterday was just a culmination of there's some relief there.
Mhm.
There's some emotional exhaustion.
Yes.
We're gonna get all into it.
We're gonna try and process all of this on today's show. Now we got 2 hours here, so we'll get as much of it as we can. But here's the thing: yesterday was pivotal, momentous, landmark day in college athletics.
Yeah,
like August 4th, 2023. We're gonna look back on for years to come in certain circumstances. It's just absolutely crazy to be watching that history kind of unfold now. Your opinion of what the history and what it did may differ, and I'm sure we'll have a lot of reaction. Trust me, we already do on my Twitter feed. I asked the question yesterday, gearing up for this, from the Utah fan perspective, and we'll get to that. But just an absolutely wild, as you mentioned, 14 months, last 2 weeks, and frankly, the last 48 hours have been insanity.
I have never. Actually, that is a lie. I have experienced this before, which is, I think, why it is so emotional for me. Oh, geez.
I see, and I get it. Like, there is a lot of emotion with everything that went down.
Yeah. A lot of people know I worked with the AAF.
Yeah.
And kind of what happened in the last 48 hours reminded me so much of, the last 24, 48 hours of working with them. And it is so not lost on me.
Sure.
That there are people that loved and believed in this conference, in the network, and it's kind of over for them. And it happened in the most public, humiliating, unfortunate, awful circumstances. And you know what? The sad thing is there's some a-holes out there that are absolutely cheering and not taking into account that like a lot of lives have been affected and ruined. And especially in a business where it's really, really hard to make it. And you make a lot of sacrifices to sit in places like that. And so to have it taken away like that breaks my heart. That's more what I'm concerned about.
Sure.
At the moment.
See, and I can completely understand that because the thing is, you're right. There's the law of unintended consequences. Now, on its surface, obviously the Pac-12 has been picked apart. Now, there are still 4 members of that conference. They're trying to determine what they're going to do. But you have, as you mentioned, people who work in the conference office, people who work to the Pac-12 networks, sports information directors at these various universities who they're all of a sudden cast into this, really awkward situation where they're not sure what the future holds for them. Mm-hmm. And to your point, you went through it with the Alliance of American Football. Trust me, I was as geeked as anybody for the AAF. Yeah. Having professional football in Salt Lake City, I was all over it. I was covering, I was at practices, all of that. When it went under, guess what? There were hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people who all of a sudden, to what you point, and because you were part of it, you lived right in the middle of it, you're all of a sudden like in a very awkward situation, like, what's the future hold here?
Yeah. I mean, there were honestly moments when I wasn't sure if I was ever going to work full-time in sports again. Like, because I just didn't see a path to how that was going to be possible. And so, yeah, I feel for like that. That is where my mind's at. Mm-hmm. I don't really, I don't really care about any of the other nonsense or whatever. That is really truly where my mind's at. And part of it's, I have friends that this affects.
Sure.
I mean, our very own Sarah, this affects.
Well, yeah, exactly. Because Sarah Hossain, who works with us, she actually produces Jake and Ben during the week. She's been a fairly regular part of this show, producing it as well. Well, I don't know if she freelances for the Pac-12 network. She does a lot of social media work for them. Mm-hmm. Well, guess what? What's the future of the Pac-12 network? What's the future of the Pac-12? Because the conference still exists. There are 4 member schools right now: Stanford, Cal, Washington State, Oregon State. They comprise what is remaining of the Pac-12. Now, the Pac-12 also will exist for this upcoming school year as well. All these member schools, all the changes, all the movement that has happened recently does not take effect until 2024, meaning Washington and Oregon, they head to the Big Ten in 24. Colorado, Utah, Arizona State, they are all going into the Big 12 in 2024. There is a full year here to come, but beyond that, to your point, is, you may be working with the network, you may be doing the stuff you've been doing, but there is, this time next year, quite literally, this time next year, what is that all going to be? And it looks like right now, for all intents and purposes, it will be dead. Yeah. It's DOA, which is it's kind of wild to consider, because I was trying to process it last night, and I did a podcast trying to get some of my thoughts out, talking just kind of about how things look right now. I'm still not 100% certain of how I feel about the quote-unquote death of the Pac-12 yesterday.
Right.
Because the situation is, I'm a kid that's born and raised in the western United States. Proportionally, in the United States of America, the Mountain and Pacific time zones have far less people, like just sheer number of people. It's around 90 to 100 million of the 300-plus million in this great country. Well, in the Central and Eastern time zones, they look at it and, okay, great. To have another conference, because we saw the WAC go the way of the earth, now has been rebooted as an FCS conference. It's got a D1 basketball presence. We've seen the Big West go away in football. There have been multiple conferences out here in the western United States who have gone away. And it looks like the Pac-12 is on its way to that. And to me, as a guy who, West Coast, Best Coast is my mentality a lot of the time.
Totally.
But to have that falling apart, and it's probably got 12 months left in it. That's kind of sad.
It is.
Like, it just, because I'm still trying to process everything that happened. It's wild to me, Michelle. 13 years later, the Holy War has conference implications once again.
Yeah, I know.
Like, trust me, we're going to try and kind of get through a bunch of these different things. And like, I just kind of wanted to start. I appreciate you trying to just lay it out, because there are people who are being affected directly. Their paychecks, their livelihoods, their future, as you mentioned. Their dream, yeah, sure. All of that affected. All of that is being there. It's up in the air. So you can, how do I say this politically correct and nice? You can be happy, sad, indifferent, angry, whatever.
Whole range of emotions.
Yeah, about whatever you want to be, but also understand that there is a very personal level to all of this. And that, it feels like in some ways we've gotten so calloused with how the business of sports kind of perpetrates itself that we kind of forget that there is a personal impact that it has. Does that make sense? Okay.
Totally makes sense. Yeah, this is a wild and crazy story. Jake and I talked about some of it off air, and it's some of the things that I'm aware of at the moment are not for public consumption.
Sure. Yeah. Maybe somewhere down the road.
Maybe somewhere down the road.
Yeah.
There's going to be some storytelling on that front, but I will say, another implication is sleep with one eye open. Like, you might be celebrating today, but there are people and motives and things going on behind the scenes that can change everything in an instant. And I am not saying that the Pac-12 didn't do this to themselves. In a sense, they did. They made a lot of bad choices, but I'll tell you what, there were people that helped push them over the edge when they didn't have to do that. It was not a move that had to be made, but the move was made.
Well, and see, and that's the thing about it is, and I kind of said this, I just kind of sat down last night, just kind of riffing on what I was kind of making sense of it. The biggest thing is TV networks. If you didn't believe that TV networks ran this sport,
they do now.
Yesterday, well, yeah, exactly. Yesterday proved that it's exactly what's happening. Fox wanted certain entities in the Pac-12. ESPN wants certain entities of their own. Guess what they did? They pulled the conference apart at the seams to pick up the pieces that they want. And by the way, they're paying them a discounted rate to get them to where they want to be. We now have a Big Ten conference that when you are an athlete at Oregon, Washington, UCLA, or USC beginning in 2024, when you go on the road, outside of playing yourselves on the West Coast, you travel multiple time zones. There are multiple studies out there that say if you travel more than two time zones in terms of travel for athletes, it has a net negative impact on overall performance, etc. Good luck with that.
Yeah.
Now, with regards to the Big 12, speaking from the BYU perspective, the Cougars have got to be happy because they were stuck on an island for a little while there. They were 800 miles away from Texas Tech as the closest Big 12 team for a minute. Then Colorado hops in, was it a week and a half ago is when that officially went down? It feels like it's been longer than that. Yeah. But they hopped in, giving a land bridge. It went Kansas, Colorado, Utah to create that land bridge, quote unquote, for the Big 12 to BYU. Now BYU has 4 friends, allies, whatever you want to call them, in the western flank of the Big 12 because Utah, now 40 miles up the road from Provo, is in the conference. Arizona State, who, by the way, those 4 were part of the original crew that founded the WAC back in the 1960s.
Yeah.
45-ish years later, they're back together. Crazy how things kind of come back around. But that perspective is BYU's like, okay, we may have a little less travel than we were originally anticipating because you can play closer to home. You can bus ride up to Salt Lake. You can make the hour and a half flights to Phoenix and Tucson. You can fly across the Rockies, which is, an hour and 10 to Colorado, whatever it is. That's going to lessen the travel on BYU and actually make it less likely they have to travel every year 2 time zones to UCF, to West Virginia, to Cincinnati. Mm-hmm. There's give, there's take, there's positive, there's negative in all of this. But I guess my next question for you, Michelle, is from the Utah perspective, because obviously you've been clued in up there, and I got to give you mad props first off for your coverage. I had multiple people who typically don't reach out and said, hey, Michelle's really on top of this. I'm like, yes, she is. She's been very good at doing what she's supposed to do as a reporter. You've been giving information and presenting it in its unvarnished and whatever. You just give it straight. You've been laying it out there. This is how things look. And there's a lot to be said for that in this day and age because we have a lot of biased, let's say coverage that happens out there. But I want to ask you this. From the Utah perspective, was it simply a fact that Utah kind of read the room, realized what was happening, and said, we got to do this?
That's kind of ultimately what it came down to.
Okay.
And, this is another piece of the story, a piece of the puzzle that I hope eventually comes out. And
sure.
Quite frankly, I don't have all the details yet either.
Well, okay, I'm going to be frank. I don't think anybody has all the details.
Yeah. It's I've had, a few people kind of say some things, but I hope that Utah fans come to realize and are so proud of the work that Utah did through this whole entire thing because they tried everything, literally tried everything.
Exhausted all their options, yeah.
To keep the pack intact. Mm-hmm. And part of it is, I think Randall and Harlan, realized some of these impacts that we were talking about. And when you have mutual respect for people, you try to, protect them.
Yeah. Sure.
But obviously, the options were exhausted. As I've said, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. Mm-hmm. And that's, I think, a lot of what ultimately transpired. But Utah did everything they could have to do right by the conference, do right by their conference mates. When it kind of became clear that things were maybe going to collapse, they made an incredible push, from what I'm told, to try and really, really secure Utah's future and get them to the Big Ten.
Okay.
And apparently those conversations went a lot better than I think most would have expected. But in the end, Big Ten's not ready to make that move with Utah. Mm-hmm. And so, they're in the Big 12, and that's fine. And it's a good landing spot, and there's things and potential there for them. And I say all this because, I know there's some fans that are kind of like, ugh, I don't know, might be out, a little disenfranchised with all this. But I am saying Utah literally tried to do everything right. And I think they deserve the utmost respect. I think they deserve the utmost support. And I hope fans and boosters and all of that are ready to get on board and make this thing special, because there is still the potential to make this special and to kick this up a notch and to do some really, really incredible things.
Well, and that's the thing. You may not have wanted this to ultimately transpire. I kind of me reading how I think things have gone down. I'll say Utah, in my opinion, is a far more willing addition to the Big 12 than Arizona State. Hearing everything I heard out of ASU is they had, I don't know, can I say zero interest in this? But to their point, they just like, you know what? We got to go.
I think Utah and ASU were very much of the same opinion.
They were reticent, and I can understand why.
Yeah.
Like, they have a strong history in the Pac-12. They've got an affiliation there that they've enjoyed associating with. There's going to be there's going to be some tension there, it feels like, in a way, as they kind of adapt to life in the Big 12 here with 16 teams and obviously Utah and BYU back together again. Now ASU and Arizona have been together their entire history. You go back, the WAC, the Pac-10, Pac-12, now the Big 12, they've been together the entire way.
Right.
But just this is such a weird day. Because we just watched a conference get torn apart, and we have now put together, we have a 16-team SEC, we have a 14-team ACC, we have an 18-team Big Ten, it looks like, moving forward, and a 16-team Big 12. We've gone from what used to be a Power 6, we've consolidated to Power 5, and now it looks like consolidation is happening once again to a Power 4. Where does it stop?
It's a great question. And it's going to be something to watch. As I said, some people came out on the winning winning quote,
side,
quote unquote winning side of this. I would sleep with one eye open. I would not trust a damn thing going on at the moment. Like you better constantly be on the phone. You better constantly be doing everything you can to keep your programs in tip-top shape. Because I don't think this is over, because the power players aren't over.
Yeah.
They're going to continue to grab what they want and leave the rest out to dry. It's just what it's going to be until, and this is a question that I've posed with several friends. Is at what point does this get too big that it's not sustainable anymore? Because it really feels like college football right now, especially with these networks, they sure are writing a lot of checks, but are they going to be able to cash those checks at the end of the day?
Well, there are people say that the sports, sports business, the sports rights bubble is... There's there's two sides of this. There are people that think that the bubble is going to burst at some point here in the relatively near future. We hear that ESPN, that with Disney essentially restructuring and telling, hey, you need to cut costs. Well, ESPN, they have full intentions. They have contracts that are obviously in place. Plus, they plan to invest heavily, it sounds like, in like the NBA, et cetera, with media rights coming up on that front. Fox feels like they're pretty flush right now with cash. They may be the one traditional sports, broadcasting company that feels like, hey, we've got money to burn. That's probably not the right term to use, but then you also have Apple, who's looming out there. Trust me, that was the rumor that the Pac-12 yesterday was going to sit down. Trust me, I was on air with DJ and PK. Yeah. I'm tracking tweets in live time. Like,
oh gosh, that was wild.
From 7 to 9 a.m. was nuts.
Yeah.
absolutely nuts because they had sat down and there was from Thursday night, essentially everybody said, okay, it's doomsday scenario here for the Pac-12. Wake up Friday, come in to do my show, and all of a sudden some stories start trickling out that, hey, the Pac-12's meeting today. They're going to try and sign a grant of rights. They're going to try and get this deal done across the finish line and stick together. And somewhere in a 2-hour time span, like it's from 7 a.m. Mountain Time to 9 a.m. Mountain Time, it fell apart again.
Yeah. That's
how quickly this went down. Now, yesterday evening, I think you were on the same thing I was on the Zoom call from Utah's Regents, the Board of Trustees, excuse me. That meeting, and I timed it, was less than 5 minutes.
Yeah.
They hopped on, said, hey, trustee so-and-so, ran down the list of who's there in attendance. They had one was excused. Then they read the resolution.
Yep.
Thanked Mark Harlan and Taylor Randall for their leadership in all of this, and then said, let's take a vote. Ayes had it. It was unanimous. And signed off.
Yeah.
An hour later, press release from the Big 12. We now are proud to welcome Arizona State, Utah, and Arizona to the conference. It was like, this all just went down in 24 hours' time.
Yeah.
It was, it's how quickly things can move in this world with regards to this. But to your point, Michelle, is how unwieldy can it become? And where will it stop?
There's going to be a point. I don't know what that point's going to be.
Well, I don't think any of us do, really.
But it's going to come. It's going to come. When you consider coaches' salaries with the buyouts and, doing these super conferences and all the travel that's going to require. And
yes.
Somewhere there's not going to be any more cash.
Sure.
It's going to run out somewhere somehow, and the whole thing's going to crumble down. And to be honest, I would not be shocked if we don't see college football go very much back the way it was.
Easily. Yes. Because
it's just, I think, in the long run, a more sustainable model. But how long we keep doing this, I don't know.
Well, and the question will be, are these TV executives, these network executives, how much more money are they going to be willing to throw at it? Because it was proven yesterday that the TV networks controlled this. They didn't want to pay 5 power conferences. They wanted to consolidate, and they consolidated that power by making the moves that they did yesterday. There's so much to look at here and dig into that I'm not 100% certain, to your point, Michelle, that we're ever going to get to the bottom of this. And I'm not sure any documentary down the road, nobody's going to ever have, I feel like, the whole story, if that makes sense.
No, I think there's going to be bits and pieces that kind of come out because this is just so large. They're like, I know I caught a lot of flack for ultimately being wrong.
On, the pack sticking together?
The pack sticking together.
Okay, well, here's the thing. A lot of people cast their lots into that camp. There are a lot of people that had their lots cast that it was going to fall apart. There are a lot of people that, there's a lot of people still that think, to your point, the whole idea of sleep with your one eye open.
Yeah.
Here's the deal. If Fox and ESPN, who most people assume are the two chief players here, are capable of pulling the Pac-12 apart, what's to stop them from pulling the ACC apart, the Big 12 apart, and creating an AFC, NFC type setup in college football?
1,000%. And I think that's probably the ultimate dream for them.
Okay.
To be honest. But look, the point is, like, my opinion changed so many times.
You're not alone.
As I started getting more information and sometimes conflicting information and, all of a sudden this thing I was not thinking about or looking at over here comes like right in my peripheral vision, and it's like, hey, look at me. Look at me. I'm going to be a problem. And then something else, somewhere else, kind of like, I don't think most fans understand how complex this was. Complex. And even I tried so hard to follow it the best that I could. Mm-hmm. There are aspects of this I don't even understand, despite having smarter people explain it to me, trying to research it, there is just so much at play. There are so many moving parts. There are several villains in this story.
Yes.
And we've kind of touched on, Fox and ESPN might be the biggest ones, but they're not the only ones.
Correct.
And there is so much to unpack with this story, so many angles to look at. It's going to be near impossible to get the full story. Like, it's that complex. I'm not hyperbolizing at all. It's that complex.
You'd probably have to talk to hundreds of people if you truly wanted to get the whole, like, from every single angle. There are hundreds of people who have roles that they have played in this.
And here's the thing. A lot of them aren't going to want to talk.
Bingo. That's
because it'll, one, either make them look really bad, or two, the sports world is very weird. Mm-hmm. And if you report on something or say something, you might never work there again.
Correct. And that can be the tough part of all this. Now, I threw this out on Twitter yesterday. I'm actually going to retweet it right now. I asked this: Utah fans, how are you feeling about today's events? I said, well, all your reaction, be it good, bad, or indifferent. I said, Michelle and I have a lot to unpack on tomorrow's Saturday show. We've got 18 responses to this, and trust me, the full range of all that. I want to dig into those. We'll do that next. We're also going to kind of try and like pivot in a way and talk about, okay, now the reality is you have the Big 18, the Big 12, the SEC. Like, there needs to be some renaming of these conferences.
1,000%.
But we're going to focus particularly on the Big 12 because that's our two local schools are now conference mates once again. So we're going to try and look at what the future holds for that, and we'll get into that next. This is the Saturday Show right here on 97.5 FM, the KSL Sports Zone.
I want you to want me.
Welcome back to the Saturday Show, and Corey's producing for us today, and he said, I've got a very good theme for our bump back music today. Well, this is a good start here, because this is a lot of what happened yesterday. That you had, okay, so Colorado wanted out. They got fed up and they moved.
Yeah.
Arizona looked like they were following the same path. Like, Arizona's like, you know what? We're good. We're moving on. Then crap really hit the fan. And by the way, welcome back. Saturday Show. Michelle, Jay.
Blah, blah, blah.
Okay.
Blase.
That aside, those two felt like they were ready to make the move. And they were Colorado had made the move. Arizona was on their way. There was some talk that the Board of Regents down there in Arizona was holding it up. Michael Crow they said the reports were they was like talking to a brick wall. But it came to it that as soon as Oregon and Washington decided we're out, like we're bailing, we're taking the deal from the Big Ten. In that circumstance, all of a sudden Arizona State, Utah, Stanford, Cal, Oregon State, Washington, every one of the remaining 6, did I have the number right? Is it 6? Whatever it was.
It was 7.
7. Okay, 7 schools. All of a sudden we're like, who wants us?
Yeah.
Because at that point, it's completely unwieldy. Because you can't afford $34 million buyouts to bring in multiple Mountain West schools.
Yeah.
Okay, SMU probably could have left the AAC, gotten you 1. So that gets you back to 8. But then you're looking at $68 million to drag San Diego State, Colorado State, whoever it is, out of the Mountain West. It was completely unwieldy. So at that point, it's like, okay, who wants us? So I Want You to Want Me. It's a great song for everything that played out.
And, I've seen Cheap Trick before in concert. So
I'm jealous, actually. I've never seen them. So that'd be fun. All right. So, Michelle, let's get to some of this reaction on Twitter real quick. So I threw this out here. I wanted to kind of get people's feeling on what's going on, Utah fans in particular. Highlights Ute says this, it's still a P5 with college football playoff access, so it's fine. I'm going to miss the budding rivalries of the Pac-12 schools. I'm going to miss annual trips to Oregon to visit my dad and go to a game with him. I'm sad to lose what was a fantastic conference. I think it encapsulates a lot of what people feel about this.
Yeah. Because
the thing about this is the Pac-12, a lot of people in the state of Utah have connections to the West Coast. Mm-hmm. You have family, as he mentioned, his dad's up in Oregon. It gives you that opportunity to go see them and also watch your team.
Yeah.
The next one, You Believer, sends you've seen this GIF, I'm assuming it's with Nacho Libre. And
yes.
And that one encapsulates a lot because it's a lot of shaking the head, kind of like, like
We're here.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of
we're here.
Is what it is. I live in my hat. Thanos says, I'm indifferent. While good to have a home in the arms race, I am having a hard time finding any games that move the needle nationally. No USC, Oregon, Washington, UCLA, or Stanford when they were relevant. There are good teams and good games. It's hard to see a big draw. And that's kind of where I want to step off on this discussion, Michelle, is now with the Big 12 having 16 teams, Utah and BYU are in this conference. I can see why you're saying that I have a hard time finding any games that move the needle nationally because there are no quote-unquote blue bloods up and down the roster of these schools, of all 16 schools.
Yeah.
But what I think, and I want your thought on this, is these 16 teams, they're going to have a chip on their shoulder. Yeah, we may not be the Michigans, the Ohio States, the Alabamas, the Georgias. We may not be those big-name programs, but what we are is we're proud football programs who want to establish ourselves firmly in the national pecking order. And I think that could create what could be a pretty fun conference football-wise.
Oh, I think there's some fun football to be had there. I do kind of agree, at least in the here now. I don't think there's anything that exactly moves the needle. I think there's some games that have potential depending on how people do.
Sure.
I think Utah TCU has some real potential. I think Utah BYU has some real potential.
I'll say this right now: it's the best rivalry in the conference.
Oh, it 1,000%.
Sorry, Territorial Cup. You guys can think you have it, but it's here. Anyways.
Oh, it is. No, it absolutely and I think that's part of what will ultimately start helping the Big 12 brand.
Sure.
Is you're losing the Red River rivalry with Oklahoma and Texas when they bounced at the SEC the next year. You kind of look around before some of these additions came on, and it's like, well, what do we have to be excited about in November?
Well, here's the Holy War for you.
Yeah. It got fixed. It got fixed with that. Like I said, Utah TCU has some potential. BYU TCU has, because there's some history there, right?
Yes. Yeah.
If Arizona kind of continues on the path that they're on with their football program, and ASU can get out of their own way, because there's really no reason why ASU should be as bad as they've been. That could end up being a really great potential rivalry, and so right now it's kind of the conference of potential. But to your point, I get it, and I'm kind of the same way, where it's like,
Well, yeah, but the thing is, the potential part of it is the fun part. We haven't even started in on this. I think it's going to have a lot of fun, because I'm of the opinion, just based on how it looks on paper, this is going to be a conference. The Big 12 is going to kind of be this way this year. I think you're going to get a microcosm of what the Big 12 could be moving forward with these 4 new members added in 2024 this year, because it looks like on paper, and Corey, I want your thought on this because I know you're an Oklahoma State guy. It feels like the middle class, quote unquote, of this conference is going to be very strong. We're talking a lot of teams who are very similar in potential, structure, style of play, that you're going to have a hard time climbing to the top, but at the same time, there's not going to be that many bottom dwellers, it feels like.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's fair. I feel like this whole conference is kind of the middle class of college football right now.
Yeah.
You don't have your elite programs, but you've got a lot of really good football. And it's one of the things that, I moved here July 1st of last year.
Okay.
That was the day after USC and UCLA announced. So for the last 13-plus months, all I've heard is how the Big 12 sucks. Brett Yormark is a used car salesman. These towns suck. Who wants to go to Ames, Iowa? Who wants to go to Stillwater, Oklahoma? Lawrence, Kansas, Manhattan, Kansas. I tell you what, everybody who's poo-pooing these cities away, these are a lot more fun trips to go see your teams play, because you're going to real college markets. The West Coast doesn't have many real college markets. They're in more metropolitan areas. You're going to real college towns where the university is everything. And when it's game weekend, you go in, everything is about what is happening on campus, what's going to happen on Saturday. So I just tell people, take a pause.
Don't knock it
make
till you
some
try
trips. Take some trips. If you're like, hey, I wanted to be able to go up to Oregon. I wanted to be able to go to Palo Alto. Take a trip to Ames. Take a trip to Stillwater. I've been to all these places. I've gone to all these games, and it's a blast. These are true college towns, true college atmospheres that you just don't get in most of the West Coast cities. They're much more metropolitan, and personally, I love the college feel, and I love small college towns. And I just say, plan some trips, go on some road trips, Utah fans, BYU fans, and you'll see what I'm talking about. It's a lot of fun in these towns.
Well, and that's kind of my thought on it as well, because the one thing that stood Utah out from the rest of the Pac-12 was it is a college town. Now, Salt Lake City is getting its glow up right now. It is a booming metropolitan area. Corey's family is here because of the booming nature of things here in the state of Utah. But the one thing is, we don't have as many pro sports as LA does, as the Pacific Northwest does. So it had a true college town feel. And I'm with you, Corey, is going to Stillwater, going to these Big 12 markets. Guess what? The biggest draw in town, these universities. And it should create, I think, a pretty fun atmosphere. Your thought, Michelle?
Yeah, I think, to be honest, like none of these places are anywhere I really particular, if I'm being real.
I can understand that.
And I'm not a huge barbecue fan either, so...
What? Yeah, and you're coming from the media side of things. From the media, they're not as glamorous as being able to go to some place that has good restaurants, better transportation options, all that. But if you're a fan, that's going for the weekend, to party, to have fun, the atmosphere is completely different. But as a media member, no, it's not the same.
Yeah, but I will say I do love me a good atmosphere.
Okay.
And so, while these aren't places that I would want to go hang out in, and I shouldn't say that I don't like barbecue. I do like barbecue, but I just want to taste it. I don't necessarily want to stuff myself full of it.
So disappointed right now.
Well,
Hey, we have salads in the Midwest too. It's not like we just walk around with meat on a stick.
Are you sure? Oh man, awesome. that took a turn I was not expecting. It's okay, yeah, traveling through the Midwest, not really my thing. Barbecue, not really my thing. As a borderline vegan. I do sound like a very uppity West Coast person.
You sure you shouldn't be living in L.A. over there, Michelle?
No, I am a little too country for L.A.
I'm just
for sure. But the one thing that these places absolutely did lack outside of Utah, Pullman, I'm going to guess Oregon State. I'm going to find out this year for the first and the last time. And Oregon, those were places that actually cared. They showed up. They had that feel. Mm-hmm. Everywhere else, it was kind of,
yeah, and that's the thing about this.
Maybe if we're winning, maybe if we're nationally relevant, but otherwise,
See, and Todd Hansen just tweeted this in. I can't wait for my trip to Morgantown this year to watch West Virginia and BYU. Amazing trips every year.
I was going to say, that's the one place that I'm actually super excited about.
You want to go see birding couches?
Until you're trying to get there. It is not easy or fun to get to Morgantown.
You got to fly to Pittsburgh and drive down, yeah.
I just think, I've seen pictures of it looks pretty. So I'm excited. That's what I'm that is pretty. And I think that's part of, because a lot of the Pac-12 road trips, it's this is so pretty.
I was at Big 12 Media Day, and I had somebody it was one of the Kansas stations. We were just kind of talking, and he said he was very excited to come out to Utah because he said we now have Provo with the West Coast mountain setting, and he said, Jake, you need to get to West Virginia. It's the East Coast mountain setting. It's in the Appalachians. He said it's a unique look, and I'm like, okay, I like that. But there's unique aspects to all of this.
Oh man, they're gonna hate me so bad though, because I'm gonna be like, those mountains are real cute.
Those hills.
Yeah, that's cute that you're calling them hills mountains.
Well,
come to my neck of the woods and let's go hiking.
But that's going to be an interesting part about this. I know we got to take a break here in a minute. Is that this conference it's full of a bunch of potential. We talk about potential all the time. There's potential across the board.
There is potential. I will give it that.
And it's going to have to be realized, obviously. Mm-hmm. And Corey, I really like what you said. It is in many ways the middle class of college football because a lot of these programs, they're not the biggest and baddest and most well-funded, but what they are very proud. They got great fan support. Trust me, I look across that entire Big 12 landscape. There's here and there, you're like, okay, that's questionable. But by and large, I'd say the vast, vast majority have very strong fan bases. Mm-hmm. And guess what? They're going to show up. Mm-hmm. They're going to support their teams, and that's going to create a culture. And we've been told time and time again that TV networks want rivalries. They want fans in the stands. They want to be able to show those shots when big moments of the games happen and fans are losing their minds. This conference feels like it's going to deliver it.
I will say it. This conference has that potential. Let's just hope it works.
Yeah.
Let's just hope it works.
No
Get
doubt.
into it, people.
Absolutely. All right, we will take a time out here. We'll come back on the other side. It is time for technical fouls after this break. Coming up at 11 o'clock, I wanted to kind of like project ahead in a way, Michelle. I want to talk a little bit about, okay, what are we looking at 4, 5, 10, 20 years down the line? We're going to try and look at that now. Trying to predict that because looking back even a year, who could have told what was going to happen? But we'll try and make some sense of that. That's all coming up on the Saturday show on 97.5 FM, the KSL Sports Zone.
If you're coming from the street with dirty shoes on your feet, that's a technical foul. If you switch the radio to some modern music show, that's a technical foul. If you touch the thermostat,
you'll get hit with a bat.
'Cause that's a technical foul.
You will feel my wrath.
That's a technical foul.
Personal foul, 69, offense. He was giving them the business.
A technical foul.
Welcome back to the Saturday show here on 97.5 FM, the KSL Sports Zone. Michelle and Jake along for the ride. And as you heard, it is time now for technical fouls. And should we just put like a blanket technical foul on the TV networks for pulling this sport apart and reforming it in their own eyes?
I think, to be honest, this is like consumed my life. So this is all I know at the moment as far as what's happened this week. So
do you want to do you want to throw a technical foul at them?
Oh, totally. Technical foul to the unnecessary greed. There's plenty to go around. There really, really was. Mm-hmm. And there was no reason why the things that transpired had to transpire. That there were literally people that had the option to lift a hand to help, and instead it was a push off the cliff. It's like, I cannot emphasize enough. That is literally what happened. So shady, so underhanded. Again, people within the Pac-12, not without fault. There were some things that they could have, would have, should have done, but it still didn't have to end like this.
Okay, so I'm going to read one of the responses to my tweet yesterday. This comes from David Steele. It says, not happy that the Pac-12 imploded. Glad we, he's speaking of Utah, are in a better situation than our friends at Oregon State, Washington State, Stanford, and Cal. Here's the thing, and to your point. Really question the arrogance of the Big Ten only offering Oregon and Washington them a reduced share as part of their conference. Like there's some unnecessary greed out there that it feels like it's what's kind of dominating the sport right now. It's unfortunate. It's what it is, but kind of crazy. Corey, you got one this week?
Yeah, mine comes from a little bit different perspective as the Big 12 guy here in the market where the Big 12's been being kind of crapped on for the last year. My technical foul is just, and it's specifically for two guys, but it's the media that's been crapping on the Big 12, and it's John Canzano and John Wilner, who have been all over this, just downplaying the Big 12, making it seem like there's this air of superiority, that the Pac-12 is so much better, and there's no way they would ever stoop so low as to go. It's like Leo DiCaprio. He has to go down below deck on the Titanic. That's the Big 12, and they thought the Pac-12 was Rose, and she had to stay above deck and eat at the fancy tables. And you know what? John Canzano and John Wilner, suck it.
Well, trust me, if you saw their mentions yesterday.
Oh, I was in them.
Oh, I was sent some screenshots of some certain ones. I'm like, I'm not gonna lie, I was chuckling because there's some really, really creative takes, I gotta say, but there's also some really, really, let's just say, unsavory ones also.
Sure, like make it funny, but you don't need to take personal shots.
Yeah.
Have some fun, make it funny. And neither one of them have like owned up to it either. And John Wilner actually shared a thing from back in January where it looked like he hinted that there might be some trouble brewing. And I'm like, seriously, you're trying to take a victory lap after the other 79 articles that Made fun of the Big 12. Yeah, okay.
There was a bunch of back and forth. It feels like there's no doubt about that. There's going to be a lot of receipts. Let's put it this way, thrown around. And trust me, there already have. I've got no doubt about that. Okay, I got one because this brings it local, and it's on the basketball front. Did you see Rudy Gobert earlier this week in international play?
I think I briefly before everything imploded kind of caught something about that.
He scored his first ever 3-pointer at the professional level playing for the French national team against Montenegro. So,
oui.
Yeah. Well, the quote is what caught a lot of people's attention. He said this in French, but it translates to, quote, "Tonight, I feel like I lost my virginity," unquote. Rudy, dude. Come on, man. Like,
I didn't know it felt that good for a big guy to hit a three.
It's a great quote. It is a great quote, but
I want to see it I want to see it. I want to try and read it in French.
Let's see. I can pull it up here, actually.
It's much sexier.
Yeah, let's see. There you go.
I sound like a drunk Texan when I Ce soir, j'ai l'impression d'avoir perdu ma virginité.
Rudy, I get you're excited to make your first three. Trust me, this is like an annual offseason thing. We'd see a video of him making 3-pointers in a workout when he was here with the Utah Jazz, and it was always like, can he do it in a game? But you make it, and then that's what you decide to compare it to?
Oh, man, if we weren't on radio, I would be cracking so many jokes. I could say so many inappropriate things right now.
We all, trust me, we were. When I saw this quote, I was sitting, I don't know who I was sitting with, some of the guys on the station, and we were just bam, 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 like just rapid. Rudy, I love you, dude, but let's think about what you say before you say it sometimes.
Oh, man.
But anyways, one of those... One of those things. And also, by the way, the NFL now is asking the federal government to address, quote, the illicit sports betting market in a response letter to Senator U.S. Congresswoman on Friday. Okay, NFL, you got in bed with multiple sports betting companies. You only all have yourselves to blame. You're having to suspend guys because your own rules are set up this way. What illicit... You guys got in bed with them. You're taking millions upon millions upon millions of dollars from these sports betting companies.
Like FanDuel and all of
this,
them. Yeah,
DraftKings, on down the list. You only have yourselves to blame for creating this illicit sports betting market. Okay, great.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, man.
I don't know.
What are you doing, baby?
All right. Anybody else got anything else they want to put people on blast for? All right, I think we're good. All right, we'll come back on the other side. We're going to talk a little bit. We're going to look ahead, honestly, because what's the future hold? And that's a huge question in all of this. It was conference realignment, an absolutely crazy day yesterday. We'll try and dig into that next. This is 97.5 FM, the KSL Sports Zone.
We belong together, and you know that I'm right. Why do you play with fire?
Corey's on fire today. All right, welcome back. This is the Saturday Show on 97.5 FM, the KSL Sports Zone. Corey, thank you for lightening the mood, honestly.
I was going to say, and that's kind of, it's really funny because when everything went down with the Stallions and the AAF, I didn't cry. I did not cry immediately the way that I did when the news of this came down.
Sure.
I think it's a little bit different when you're in the moment.
Well, when you're in it.
When you're in it, it's literal survival mode. It's like, okay, what needs to be done? And I mean, a little bit of a different situation, right? But we had people that were just displaced. Like they weren't even from here. They didn't live here. And but it's like I was running around cracking jokes, even though I was like, oh God, none of us have a job.
You're trying
to line the move. Trying to line the move, get people through it, get people back home, whatever. It was probably 3 days later, I think, that I actually finally broke down and cried. And it was actually after, because I was taking a bunch of our guys to the airport, giving them rides and stuff. Yeah. And it was when I dropped BJ off, and went home. I was like, because he was kind of the last one here, and it was like, wow, this is really over.
And I can understand that because you're in shock in a way.
Yeah.
And this one, okay, and it's nothing. This one, I can understand why you were emotional about it because you've been through it and you're thinking of the other people. And it's much easier to have empathy when you're not in that survival shock mode. And you're like, oh, geez.
Yeah. Giddy up. What needs to be done? What do we got to do? How do we get others through this?
Sure.
Yeah.
And you've got empathy for what's going on right now. So we've been talking, if you're just tuning in, we've been talking all about what happened yesterday. That's what this show is about today, is what's going on. Now, I need to answer this question. Mama Haas, a longtime listener to the station, legendary. Big BYU fan. Gigantic. Lisa is legendary on our airwaves for coming on and loving to rip into Utah. And I'm sure she's going to call in at some point this coming week on DJ and PK because she's got this unique relationship with the two of them. She sent me this just barely, and I think I can help clarify this a little bit because there's been a lot of confusion on this. I actually asked the question myself on social media and started digging into it last night.
Yeah, it is confusing.
Okay, so she said Ute, speaking of the Utah football program or football athletic department, Utes get a full share in the Big 12 and BYU gets half. Is that right? It's not right. Because in 2025, the reported $31.7 million payouts, the full share memberships, full share payouts, like I said, for member schools, kicks in 2025. The 2 years that BYU is in the conference here, they're getting partial shares. They're reported to be between $18 and $19 million. It's actually not that far off of what the Big 12 current media rights deal pays out. Currently, the media rights deal pays $220 million annually. In 2025, it's going to $380. So Utah in 2024-2025, the year that they will be in the conference, that the new deal is not in effect, Michelle, they will make $22 million in media rights. That's besides bowl payouts, NCAA tournament shares. They announced the record. It was 44 and change million for the Big 12 last year. It was a record per school distribution. The $22 million is what you'll make in media rights for Utah that first year. Then 2025 and beyond, all 16 members, all $31.7 million starting that year, and it's going up from there.
Yeah.
Hopefully that can clear up some of the confusion. It won't, but I'd try.
I know, right? Yeah, we put our best foot forward on this one. And actually, you kind of helped clear it because people have asked me, and I'm like, I don't know. The
current media rights, it's $220 million annually. And the way that the contracts have been written is that these new schools, the four newcomers, speaking of Arizona State, Utah, and Colorado, they're coming in as full share members. They're going to get the $22 million media rights. At least I could be wrong on that, but everything I've read is if the contracts are written that way, that's what that payout is for the 1 year. And then BYU, all other 15 members, all in 2025 together get $31.7 million in media rights. And that's besides, like I said, bowl payouts, the NCAA tournament stuff.
All the extra stuff that gets sprinkled in if you do your job well.
And keep an eye on the media rights, the data rights.
Right. That's becoming a thing, people.
That's a whole nother thing. That's a whole nother opportunity to add more cash to the pot. Keep an eye on when if and when that announcement comes. They said at Big 12 Media Days they were working on that. I wonder if the new additions change the calculus of that and when it ultimately gets announced. But that's a whole nother revenue stream that could be coming down the pipe. So, all right. Need to get that question answered. So, there we go. Yeah. All right. So, Michelle, now I've been kind of reading through some of these responses. I want to get to a couple more of them. So, I asked this yesterday. I asked Utah fans, how are you feeling?
Yeah.
I wanted to kind of get that pulse for how Utah fans are feeling about things. And I appreciate you retweeting it. I know that our station retweeted it and got some good responses here. So here's the thing. Next one. We come in Big 12, NSL_Ute, North Salt Lake Ute, I believe is what it stands for. It says, best scenario given the options. It's going to be a good time. Okay. Well, and I think we've come to that conclusion. Based on what the room was doing and the chessboard, how it was moving, it's what you had to do.
Yep.
Tom Wimmer at Snoop Butt. That's a great Twitter handle. It'll be a fun conference. More national exposure. You travel across the conference. Maybe that will help in recruiting. Well, Utah's been recruiting at a pretty high level already. But our basketball team is in big trouble. I think there's a lot of basketball teams, including BYU's, that are in big trouble because...
woof.
Yeah. But he says this, but we'll be fine elsewhere. Is there equal pay for bowl games, or do successful teams get more of the money? Now, the way I understand that, the new contract and the current contract, it goes into one pot and it's distributed evenly. I know that the Pac-12 was talking about this. You can probably correct me. They were talking about unequal revenue distribution, especially on the bowl side of things. Right?
Yeah. It was, to my understanding, my knowledge, it was going to be on the bowl side of things.
Okay.
Which, if you're going to do unequal revenue sharing, I think that's where it should come in, right?
Well, yeah. Reward you for playing well.
Exactly. Yeah. And maybe you skim like a little off the top and throw it in a pot and distribute it. Because to be honest, in order to get to, some of these more prestigious elements of college football, college basketball, you need the rest of the conference to be good. And so, when you elevate, especially like last year with the Pac-12, where they had 6 teams finish in the top 25, part of that's a result of everyone else that didn't make that top 25 cut was viewed as being a good team too. So there should be like a little reward, I think, for that. But for the most part, I think that kind of stuff should go to whoever earned it.
Well, and that may come down the road. Who knows? Because the current Big 12 contract is going to go through 2031. They're going to go back to market. And we'll see what happens at that point. There's been a lot of talk. Jason Scheer out there saying that the Big 12 may push for 2 more basketball-only members. That would be Gonzaga and UConn. Brett Yormark, he loves himself some college hoop.
I'm glad someone does.
And there's very strong indications that if he pulls that off, even if he doesn't pull it off, that when the next media rights round comes for the Big 12, Michelle, that he may decouple football from basketball and pursue separate deals for those 2 sports. The Big 12 is going to be the preeminent basketball conference.
There's no question about that.
So that's kind of his thought. But I've got one other comment I want to talk about here, and it's kind of a launching off point for what I wanted to talk about in this segment, Michelle. It comes from Paul Hallbaum, I think is how you pronounce this. It's Hallbom.
That feels like a safe guess.
All right, so he says, we, speaking of Utah, lived in a nice home with no backyard neighbors. The city rezoned to build a Walmart on the vacant lot. We reluctantly moved, only to discover the new home had a very angry kitty next door. Come to find out, this hood will be destroyed in a few years as well, so meh.
We've kind of touched on that a little bit.
So that's where I kind of want to go. It's like come to find out, this hood will be, speaking of neighborhood, will be destroyed in a few years as well. So man, that's what I want to do, Michelle. Looking ahead here, and hold none of this against us, because 13 months ago when Corey moved here, who could have guessed that the University of Utah and BYU, after 13 years being estranged,
doing their own thing,
are back together in the same conference?
Yeah.
I would have put big money that was not going to happen for a while.
Oh, yeah.
If ever.
I mean, really, up until maybe the last month, I would have thought you were absolutely insane. But
it's a reality now.
It's the reality now.
So now as we look forward here, because to what Paul says here, and we've already talked about this, is that Utah made pitches to the Big Ten. And also to your other point, and I completely agree with it, if you're any of these schools, and I mean any of them, BYU, Utah, on down the list in the Big 12, you've got to be constantly monitoring the situation moving forward here. Because if it sure looks like this, if a TV network, ESPN, Fox, whoever it is, if they want to pull something apart, they have now proven that they can do that. I'm actually wondering how long before they pull the ACC apart.
Oh, yeah.
Because we all know that
eyes peeled.
ESPN has the rights, for by and large, with the ACC right now. But you can guarantee Fox is sitting there saying, all right, what do we got to do here? Like, can we hone our way in?
How do we manipulate this situation to get what we want?
So where do you think things are going, Michelle? Big open-ended question.
I know. Crazy. And again, opinion has completely and totally changed, but I think we are barreling towards some kind of NFL-ish model. And if the moves that have just barely been made hadn't been made, I would have maybe been a little bit skeptical, because I think, I just really think USC, UCLA really overestimating their ability to be able to handle that that travel for 5 or 6 years. I mean, now they have some people to kind of cushion that blow a little bit.
Sure.
I would have bet that things maybe would have kind of sort of ended up going back the way that people would have gone back, and or a little more care perhaps taken in trying to build branches and pods in order to take care of everybody if we really were going to do this P2 thing. Now it's just the wild, wild west. And we are barreling towards this thing. And at some point, I think it collapses. I just do. I think it's going to get too big. I don't think it's going to get managed very well. And I think part of it's because we are barreling toward it very, very fast. And I think these things take time and they take planning if you're going to try and do something like that. But, you know, I mean, as I've said, this is such a complex story. There are so many things going on. I've talked about a lot of things that, you know, I think I know, and then something comes up that I was not anticipating, that I did not see. And I have to say, I think there's things floating around that we're not discussing. And part of it's that I don't think we even know that they exist in the moment, to be honest. And they could come up to the forefront and completely change my opinion again. But for the here and now, I think the P2 is exactly what we're barreling towards.
Well, and I feel like, to your point, yesterday points towards that. Because I'm of the opinion, had in some ways sanity prevailed with the Pac-12, with these university presidents, had they decided, you know what, we really want to go to a national model, or do we want to stay regional?
Yeah.
Like, that's the thing. We're pushing towards national versus staying regional, because that's exactly what happened. The funny thing about this is, and this is the East Coast bias at its finest, I'm seeing Big Ten fans saying, I can't wait to make a road trip to Oregon and UCLA in the same weekend, or what. I'm like, do you realize they're 1,100 miles apart?
Yeah. I hope you're planning on taking some time off.
There is this perception on the East Coast that everything out in the West is so smashed together like it is on the East Coast.
It's not. It's not. We're spread out. We got room, homies. There's a lot of open land.
There are wide open spaces, to quote the country song out there, and they exist in all over. So I'm not sure that the Big Ten fans at large in the traditional Big Ten. Yeah, exactly. It spans, and you're right. It feels like we're moving towards that now. The thought I've got on this is, yes, I'm with you that I think we're pushing towards a truly national model, which frankly sucks.
Yeah, because I don't love it.
The college environments are unique. They're regional. They exist in their own spheres. The NFL is so, I don't know.
I will tell you this. I've traveled to a couple of NFL games. I like watching NFL on TV. I don't know that I love being at the games quite as much. The only place I have ever been that has that like magical kind of college feel, Green Bay.
Well, and Green Bay is the smallest market in the NFL.
There's reasons why it feels that way.
And if the NFL was being formed today, there's not a chance in hell that Green Bay ends up with an NFL franchise.
Oh, God, no.
So I'm just saying. Like
Green Bay is very unique in that way.
And that's what a lot of college towns are. But as you push towards a national model, it's going to, I guess, in a way, sanitize what college football has been. It's always been unique and distinct from the NFL, which has been it's a professional model. There are, like, Philadelphia Eagles fans are legendary.
Right.
Kansas City Chiefs fans are legendary. San Francisco 49ers fans, Oakland Raiders fans, like there are
Bills Mafia.
Yes. There are
Thank you.
Yes, but there's unique aspects, but by and large the NFL is so sanitized and it's so cut and dry business oriented with that college has a lot more emotion to it. And pageantry, yes. The pregame, the flyovers, the marching bands,
the cute little bubbly cheerleaders, and
the song leaders. Like, trust me, like that stuff doesn't exist in the NFL.
No,
that's what college. And I'm afraid we're at risk of losing that. And I say we as a general populace.
Yes.
We're at risk of losing all of that if you push towards this is all about the almighty dollar. You're going to cast a lot of stuff off to the wayside. And it kind of goes back to what you talked about earlier, Michelle, is there's a personal aspect to all of this that is being lost.
Yeah.
in the business side of it, the bottom line on that sheet. Okay, are we making net profit? Okay, we're off we go. This is stuff being decided in a business boardroom that if any of them were to step out of that boardroom and go and see the environments that they're affecting, it may have changed their opinion.
Oh, absolutely. And it's, it's crazy. So yesterday I have this girl that I mentor a little bit. She is actually about to start her first semester at BYU. Go figure that. The Utah beat writers mentoring this little gal that's about to start her college career at BYU. Loves BYU, loves BYU athletics. Cool. Grew up with it. Awesome, amazing.
Sure.
But like one of the questions she was asking me was like, how do you go about building a brand and like being true to yourself? And it's really hard to do in this business because again, there is a level of sterilization. And as a media member, and especially as a female media member, there are sometimes expectations that like you're very like unapproachable. Like there is just this line of a wall almost. And that is just so not who I am. And I mean, like there, like literally, there's been instances, and it's so sweet and it's so cute. With some of these players that, I've guys that like don't normally get interviewed, and I find something out cool about them, want to interview them, want to do a story, and afterwards they'll like scoop me up in a big hug, and especially early on, it's like. Oh my God, like
a little bit of a shock.
Like it's like, oh my God, I hope no one thinks anything's going on here because this is supposed to be so cut and dry and sterilized and no emotions. And now it's like, for me, it's cool, whatever. Like, you know what? Because this business is getting just yucky. So it's like, you know what? Like, we're going to roll like that. We're going to go with that. That's how people interact with me, and I'm cool with that. And I think other people are picking up on it. And so it's been a cool thing, but I don't know. I don't like cut and dry business. Like, yes, handle your business, but like you can also be human too. And it's honestly like, it shocks me how much it gets appreciated. Like I've had players like DM me, hey, like, thanks for being nice to me, which I should not be getting those kinds of DMs. Like that should just be like a standard practice across the board. And it's not.
Well, it should be is the operative word there. It should be, but too often anymore, it's become transactional. That you are providing a service. I'm speaking for a student athlete. Yeah. You are here providing a service to this university, and once you're done, and it sounds really, really callous, but they're cast aside.
They can be, and I think, to be honest, that's what makes Utah so special. That's what makes BYU so special. Is there is a little bit of this, hey, like we appreciate what you did for us.
You're part of the family.
You're part of the family.
Yeah.
Come back anytime, and you're going to be welcomed with open arms. We love your input. We want you to be involved in this thing.
And trust me, I do appreciate that about Utah and BYU in particular, because the coaches themselves, I'm speaking of Kyle Whittingham and Kalani Sitake, they have really engendered that into their program. Like there is a familial aspect to it. You come back, you're loved up the same as you were when you were suiting up for that team. Doesn't matter if you made it to the NFL or if you were a bottom of the bench scrub. You are still you were part of this, and you are part of it still, and that I can appreciate. I'm afraid that
we're losing that.
And it may become that BYU and Utah are the outliers in all of this.
Well, I mean, to be honest, they've kind of been outliers for a while, because I talked to, and I think that was kind of part of the Stallions as well, is like we had a very strong core of Utah and BYU players. Duh. Shocking news break. But then we had a bunch of other kind of rando guys that got thrown into the mix of that. And I think they were seeing how tight those players were with each
The
other.
bond, yeah.
And sometimes, there were some pretty big age gaps between some of those Utah players. We had a Matt Asiata that had been in the NFL, graduated forever, dealing with Aleka Uatafe, who had just kind of barely graduated college.
Sure.
And, it didn't matter, though. You're a Utah, then we're brothers. We're cool with each other.
The hashtag boys thing exists for a reason.
It's real.
Yeah.
And so there's these other guys that came from other places that are like, what the heck is this? We don't know other alums.
Sure.
And then even, and it's kind of a weird thing too, when you look at the rivalry, there's kind of this weird underlying hatred, but a lot of them outside of that, they're friends with each other.
Sure.
So there's even a little bit of a brotherhood, cross brotherhood there.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not the 90s guys. I don't know. That group don't seem to like each other very much, but kind of before and after that, there seems to be some coolness there.
Well, I can tell you that there are. The funny thing about this, and I'll also say this, BYU and Utah are more linked at the player level than almost any other level.
Oh.
Administration, fan, coach, the players, the guys who grew up playing against each other in high school, they hung out together. They still hang out together to this day.
Yeah.
They're not these mortal enemies. That's not. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting path ahead, and I'm hopeful that it goes. In some ways, reverts back in a way, but it's sad that yesterday happened because it feels like it's a push towards what we didn't want to happen.
Yeah.
All right, we will come back on the other side. We've got an interview. We're going to talk Ultimate Disc. Now, I get that it may not register, but we have a really, really good team in our backyard. We're going to talk about that next. It's also, that's a great question, Corey. What conference are they in? I think they play. It's called it's an American Ultimate Disc League. I think it's AUDL. I think is it AUDL or something like that. Anyways, we'll get more information on that. It's 5 minutes of talking about some other topics. There's other sports that are happening outside of what's happening in college sports. We'll get to that next. This is 97.5 FM, the KSL Sports Zone. Welcome back to the Saturday Show here on 97.5 FM, the KSL Sports Zone. Michelle Bodkin there. Jake Hatch here as we break down everything going on in the sports. Well, it's time for 5 minutes of. We're going to kick off this segment with the Salt Lake Shred. Now, that name doesn't sound familiar. I can understand that. But we've got a really, really good team in our backyard. They compete in the American Ultimate Disc League, if I've got that correct. And Isaac Pritchett joins us. He's one of the co-founders and co-owners of the Salt Lake Shred. Isaac, thank you for taking some time this morning. How are you?
Doing fantastic. Beautiful day. Thank you, Jake.
So, Isaac, you guys are 11-1, speaking of the Shred, and you guys are in the playoffs now. Is that correct?
Yep. Yeah, that's right. We'll be hosting the West Divisional Championship game this coming Friday.
Okay, so you're 11-1, and for those of our listeners out there, I think a lot of people have played Ultimate Frisbee growing up in some form or fashion. I played it when I was at BYU. I had a friend that said, hey, we need an extra guy for our intramural team. So I went and played with them. I am far from what you're looking for in terms of what you're looking for the Salt Lake Shred, but it's still
Sure.
a fun sport. Explain what all it entails.
Yeah, probably the best parallel to people not familiar with the sport is it's a little bit of a cross between soccer and football. So the goal is to get the disc into the end zone, kind of like scoring a touchdown in football. But when you catch the disc, you can't run with it. You have to throw it to somebody else who's cutting. So there's a lot of dynamic movement cuts like you would see in soccer, trying to attack different angles of the field.
And so you said that you're hosting this. Where is your home field?
Yeah, our home field is Zions Bank Stadium in Harriman, Utah. It's a beautiful facility out there, awesome view of the mountains, nice big turf field. A lot of people that can fit in the stands, but it's still kind of nice and cozy, which means you can get loud and make some noise, affect the other team.
All right, so you guys got to 11-1. You mentioned you're hosting the West Championship. Just kind of break down how the season's gone for the team. Obviously, it's been highly, highly successful, losing once in the run-up to this.
Yeah, it's been fantastic. We've really been proud of the work that we've put in over the season. Our inaugural season was last year. We went 10-2, and then unfortunately lost to Colorado in the divisional championship game. This year, we've beaten everyone in the West and actually hosted the reigning champions, New York, They are our only loss this season. So we're really proud of the work we've been able to put in and the kind of the dominance we've established in the West so far.
And so who are you playing this week, and tell us a little bit about them?
Yeah, we are playing the Los Angeles Aviators. They had a rough season last season, but made some really, really big off-season moves. They picked up Sean McDougal, who currently is leading the whole league in plus-minus, and Paulo Llanes, who is the league's actually all-time assist leader. So really, really great kind of handler quarterback player. So they've been really dangerous this year. They started out a little slow. They started out 1-3, but as their chemistry got together with all these new acquisitions, they went on a really hot 5-game run and really haven't looked back. So they're kind of peaking at exactly the right time and looking dangerous.
Isaac, I'm looking over like the team names in this league. There's some great names. You mentioned the LA Aviators. You have the Colorado Summit, the Seattle Cascades, the San Diego Growlers. There's some really fun mascot names here.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of the naming. I think we got a good league. The New York team, who are really strong, are called the Empire, which is kind of what I think of the Yankees as sometimes. Okay. So appropriate naming conventions. Yeah, it's great.
Now, where does your team come from? Are they Utah based guys? Like, what's the makeup of the team?
Yeah, that's a great question. Over the past maybe 10 to 15 years, Utah has been establishing a really strong youth scene, actually. The Lone Peak High School has won the national high school championship for the past 2 years, and that's work that people have been putting in at the ground level for a long time. So we are lucky to have a lot of talent out of Utah State, University of Utah, Brigham Young University, and that's where I would say the core of our players come from. But we're also super lucky this year that we've kind of attracted some talent from across the country, actually. We have Elijah Jaime, who played for Atlanta last year and kind of saw our team and wanted to get involved, so now plays with us. And multiple-time world and national champion Grant Lindsley, who used to play for New York, now is coming out and playing for us, which is really fantastic. And we're lucky to have all those guys.
That's awesome. So I said Friday night, they're out there at Zions Bank Stadium. Is that correct?
That's correct, yeah. It'll be August 11th, starts at 7 p.m., so just kind of as the sun is setting, it'll be a really nice night, lovely weather. It's one of my favorite kind of summer traditions now. I love going to those games.
And where can people get tickets?
Yeah, you can go to saltlakeshred.com to buy tickets. I would recommend doing that. You can get tickets at the door, but the prices go up a little bit. So saltlakeshred.com is the place to go for tickets.
Awesome. Well, Isaac, thank you for carving out some time for us this morning, and best of luck. Hopefully you guys can win it on Friday and advance in the playoffs.
Yeah, really appreciate it. We are looking forward to it. We're confident in our chances, and we're excited to play the game.
All right, there you go. Isaac Pritchett. Big thank you to him. Salt Lake Shred in action coming up, hosting the LA Aviators. As I'm telling you, Michelle, these names. The West alone had some good ones. DC Breeze. The Philadelphia Phoenix is a unique one, but I got to say, this is not like I talk about in soccer all the time how like a lot of Major League Soccer teams have kind of followed the European model of naming their teams. Mm-hmm. I like the fact that you just have new things. Minnesota Wind Chill. That's a great name.
That is a great name. No, it's a little more unique.
Yes.
And again, bringing this full circle, like that was the whole point of the AAF. Mm-hmm. If you notice, all the names were really unique and cool and different, except for Salt Lake's.
Yeah.
Wah, wah.
I still had issues with the Stallions and little things, but nonetheless.
They loved the alliteration, and they didn't put very much thought into our team because I think we were the last ones that they actually were working on, but I digress.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. All right. So there you go. The Salt Lake Shred, if you want to get out and watch it. By the way, that Zions Bank Stadium, it hosts the Utah Warriors call that home. Obviously, the Real Monarchs, the minor league for Real Salt Lake. That's their home field. It's actually a really, really fun, unique environment. It's got incredible views.
Beautiful. And I mean, the facilities are bar none, except for the indoor facility. Reminds me of the Partridge Family. I sing the Partridge Family every time I pull up there. It was actually a thing that myself and, because that's where the Stallions practiced.
Mm-hmm. I spent many a practice hanging out with y'all over
hanging
there.
Out with us. Yeah. That was what me and Lamar Thomas would we would see and if you're a football fan, you know Lamar Thomas, like my big Miami guy, killer wide receiver back in the 90s. Yeah.
All right. Fair enough. All right, a couple other things we need to cover in this segment, Michelle. Real Salt Lake, in action last night. They were down 1-0 at halftime to Club Leon. Now, they're playing what's called the Leagues Cup. This is a matchup between both Major League Soccer and Liga MX down in Mexico. RSL got pummeled, for lack of a better term, by Monterrey. And I'm not going to lie, I was going into last time, I'm like, okay, Club Leon, they actually just won the Champions League, the CONCACAF Champions League, beating LAFC, who is, by many people's eyes, the best team in Major League Soccer. But to Real Salt Lake's credit, they came out last night in the second half like men possessed. 17 shots, generating all kinds of looks on goal, scoring 3. There were 2 that went to Danny Musovski, and then obviously Chicho Arango scored the 3rd, and RSL advances now. So they now head to face off against LAFC on Tuesday with a chance to make it to the quarterfinals. If they win at LAFC on Tuesday, which is the round of 16 in this tournament, Michelle, they will return home on Saturday and host quarterfinal action. So we'll see.
Not bad after having a raccoon drop through the ceiling.
Okay. The raccoon part of it is just I was not there Thursday night because it was just too late of a start, and with my turnaround on radio responsibilities, I wasn't gonna be there. I told my wife as that was unfolding on social media, I'm like, man, I wish I would have gone.
I should have just sucked it up.
Just to now, that was a hellacious storm that rolled through.
Oh my gosh, that was crazy.
I drove through it because I hosted Unrivaled that afternoon, and I was driving home, and I could see it like out on the horizon. I'm like, that looks pretty nasty.
Oh.
And as I got closer, I'm like, oh no, that was insane.
Yeah, the last couple of nights, crazy weather.
Yeah, but that storm alone, that one like severe. I understand why they ended up postponing the game because that weather cell was going to last until 1 a.m. They had every intention also of this, by the way, of playing until 11 p.m. Like they were gonna push it as long. They wanted to get that match in, and they were willing to wait till 11 p.m. to see if that would go through. But it never cleared up with the weather radar. And they're like, you know what? We're gonna postpone it. Fun night all the same last night. Corey, were you out at it last night?
No, it wasn't part of our season ticket package, and we didn't buy those.
Yeah, because you are a season ticket holder for Real Salt Lake, and that's the thing about this is it was a really fun thing because trust me, the first half of RSL last night they looked it's like okay, yeah, they're not in the same league as Liga MX here. Second half they took it right to them and looked. I was like, okay,
you gotta love that.
If they play like this, ain't nobody stopping this club. Mm-hmm. The problem is, can you channel that? Night after night, but you got to be. It's got to be consistent. And going to LAFC is going to be a different deal for them on Tuesday.
Well, and I think they have channeled that for the most part. I mean, in their last 14 games, 10 wins, 3 ties, and 1 loss.
Yeah,
I mean, this team is really good right now.
They've completely changed this season, and that's the thing about this is they started out very, very poor, and to their credit, have completely turned around. Now, the acquisitions in and of itself, they just actually signed a deal to get Brian Ojeda here full-time from Nottingham Forest in the English Premier League. $2 million. That makes their grand total spent so far this year somewhere between $16 and $17 million.
Yeah.
The heaviest investment, by the way, across the league. Nobody in Major League Soccer has spent more money than Real Salt Lake has spent this season alone. They're putting the money in, and it's paying off right now.
Yeah.
That's the fun part about it. Because, trust me, there are other teams out there that spend lots and lots of money, and it just does not go the way that they expect it to.
Texas A&M, totally different sport, totally different league. But, more or less what we're talking about.
Yeah, it's kind of funny how things work the way that they work. One other thing real quick, Michelle, is I know you've been so engrossed in all this. Want to say best wishes to Ricky Rubio, a former Utah Jazz guy. This came out this morning. He has announced that this morning that he's putting his career on hold indefinitely to focus on his mental health. Now, Ricky has been in professional basketball since he was 18 years old, and even longer than that, but at the NBA level. He's been around for a really, really long time. He says, I have decided to stop my professional activity to take care of my mental health. I want to thank all the support I have received from the Spanish national team to understand my decision. Today, #family makes more sense than ever. Thank you. I would ask that my privacy be respected so that I can face these moments and be able to give more information when the time is right, unquote. So he was supposed to be part of the Spanish national team in the upcoming World Cup and everything, and he's a big part. He's 32 years old. It's crazy to think that Rubio is still just 32 years old because I've been tracking him since he was 16.
Jeez.
I remember hearing about this absolutely incredibly gifted passer out of Spain named Ricky Rubio, and he looked every bit the young Spaniard like wizard.
Yeah.
But I just want to wish him well, because this is no laughing matter.
No. Mental health stuff is very, very serious, and I'm glad that he's taking care of himself, because I think we've seen far too often in sports where people don't handle whatever's going on, and they pay an ultimate price for it. So I'm glad that he's taking care of it. I'm glad as a society, a sports society, we're getting better at, recognizing, dealing with, taking care of, being open about that. And then obviously as a society as a whole outside of sports as well, it's important.
Yeah. He does have 2 seasons and $12.5 million left on a contract with the Cleveland Cavaliers. Who knows what ultimately transpires on that front, but want to wish him the best. Obviously, he was a guy who was out here in Utah and was a really, really well-respected guy while he was here, just consummate professional. Let's just put it that way. All right, we will come back on the other side, put a bow on this edition of the Saturday Show. This is 97.5 FM, the KSL Sports Zone.
I threw a wish in the well. Don't ask me, I'll never tell. I looked to you as it fell, and now you're in my way. I trade my soul.
Welcome back to the Saturday Show. Corey, man. Oh, it's been awesome. You like this song, Michelle?
So this song.
Hey, I just met you, and this is crazy. So here's my number. So call me maybe.
I remember when this song was so and there was like the Star Wars version, and I just like. It's so weird how this took off the way that it did, but it always reminds me of when I actually went to my first NFL game at Lambeau Field to watch the Green Bay Packers and the San Francisco 49ers open up the 2013 NFL season. Okay. Yeah. And I got to watch Alex Smith, and I got to watch Aaron Rodgers.
Jeez.
Awesome. That was my first NFL game.
That's pretty cool, actually. I'm not gonna lie. Like that doesn't happen. Like, okay, that doesn't happen. It's kind of what music does for people, because you can name songs like, okay, what's my age again for Blink-182? Every time I hear that song, you know what it takes me to immediately? It was my sophomore year in high school at Mountain View High School in Orem, Utah, at an assembly where our student body president recreated that song with him and his buddies making their own music video to it. I will forever remember that. I was 16 years old. I'm 36 now, Michelle.
Right. Like,
it's 20 years in the past. But that song.
Oh, damn. That's
I know.
totally different set.
Sorry.
I'm like, oh, wow, junior high was 20 years ago.
It's terrifying.
Wow.
I know. I think back to stuff like that, and it's just like, oh, wow. Okay. But that's what music can do for people.
Yeah.
It can transport you literally back in time. So, crazy stuff. But it's been a wild show.
It's been a lot.
We've tried to cover as much ground as possible. I don't think we even scratched the surface.
Oh, not even. And part of it's because I guarantee you there's things that will come up on this topic that we just don't know about at this point in time.
Sure.
So it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see what all comes out. It's a whole lot. It's a whole lot. I don't know really what else to say. That's the best explanation I can give.
Well, and Kate, to add to that point, it's kind of hard to really have and it's hard to have a full appreciation or full understanding of everything that's just transpired because it's so fresh and new. Mm-hmm. Because, trust, you would have told me 48 hours ago that Utah and BYU were in the Big 12 together. I'm like, yeah, I see those rumors, but I just don't see it.
Yeah.
48 hours later, here they are.
Yeah, here we are.
I don't know. It's crazy.
What's old is sometimes new again. Let's go.
Real quick on this.
Yeah.
Do you want that rivalry game back on Thanksgiving weekend, or do you think they should try something new? Like, because the Red River rivalry was always played. It's always played. It's played right around the Texas State Fair, early October, I believe.
Oh, interesting. I actually did not know that.
I saw some people pushing for, because BYU and Utah State for years have played that Friday before General Conference. Maybe just kind of a trend. I just wonder, do you want it back Thanksgiving weekend with the Holy War?
Do you want me to be totally honest? I'm not terribly excited that this game is back the way that it's going to be. Here's why. Look, it's a great game. It is a great game.
Mm-hmm.
I wish people would just let it be a great game.
They can't.
Without all the other shenanigans. Yeah. And I personally felt like the space between the two actually made it a little bit healthier. So I'm a little concerned being in such close quarters with each other again.
Oh, come on.
What this is going to look like. I am. I'm legitimately concerned because I am so team be cool with each other. Like I lean more to the Utah side of things, but I have zero issues with BYU's football program. Zero. Like 0. I like a lot of people that are involved with that. I don't. Please, let's be somewhat civil. Like the poking fun at ha ha he he stuff, like that is all great.
Sure.
When it turns mean, I'm not into it. But to your point, I think it is going to be a Thanksgiving thing again.
That's why I suspect it'll be, because I'm assuming that the Big 12 will want to create a rivalry weekend where the Territorial Cup, which has traditionally been played on Thanksgiving weekends, played there. The Battle for the Sunflower. Is it the Battle for the Sunflower State between Kansas, Corey? Is it what they call it? Is that the Kansas State rivalry?
Sunflower Showdown.
Sunflower Showdown. Yeah. I'm assuming some of those will be set up, and the Holy War between BYU and Utah gets set there.
Yeah.
We'll see. All right. Any final thoughts from you?
No. I'm a blank slate at the moment. No, I'm looking forward to enjoying my weekend. You're not going to hear too much from me. And I got that approved because I was not supposed to be on yesterday, and I was on. But actually, I'm going to be meeting up with a friend that's in town.
Good.
So,
all right. Well, enjoy that.
Yeah.
And we will reconvene next week and try and make heads or tails of whatever's going on. By the way, Corey, want to say publicly, we're going to miss you, dude.
Yeah,
thanks,
man.
buddy.
Corey's leaving us. He's not going too far. He's still living here.
I'm still staying in Salt Lake.
You're doing podcasting and whatnot.
Yeah, I'm joining a podcasting network back in Kansas City,
do you have a name for it, by the way, so people can find it if they want?
Not yet.
Okay.
Not yet. We're working on the names.
To be determined.
Yeah.
Okay. When you have it, send it to me, and we'll give you a shout.
Sounds good, man.
All right. Well, like I said, I just wanted to publicly thank you for everything you did for us. All right. That's it.
Finito. It's done.
It's been a wild show. All right. Stay tuned all week long here on The Zone. We got plenty of coverage to come on the other shows throughout the days, Monday through Friday. And obviously, we'll be back here next Saturday, right here on the Saturday show on 97.5 FM, the KSL Sports Zone.